right? Um, I follow you on Twitter, and I think you've written some interesting stuff recently about Bitcoin becoming a better risk asset or hedge, safe haven asset than real estate. And so that's the interesting place to start. I'd love to start there. So walk my audience through how that shift functions, because for my whole life, the trade has been, borrow money, buy real estate, retire on that equity, right? And you think that could be compromised. So talk to me about why.
Yeah, and I think for people that haven't read the book or haven't understood what's happening right now, I think we probably should do a quick start there and
Please.
then go if that's okay.
Please.
And just these concepts are really hard to wrap our brains around because they're different than we've ever experienced. And so when you say why could real estate be a bad investment versus Bitcoin, I'm sure a whole bunch of your audience is like, come on, I'm not listening anymore. This is ridiculous. And so it's just important to say we live in two different. So we live in a world where advancing technology should be freeing our time, and that advancing technology is exponential in nature, and it's going to move into artificial intelligence and robotics and merge into. And when that happens, the marginal cost of production falls to almost zero, and things become free, or they become ever increasingly cheaper as competition races in to deliver us more value, and we use that value. That's actually how a company creates value. They give more value to society by automating and bringing technology. Some of the best investments that I've made or founding companies is a result of giving more value to society that drives that. So that is the macro framework we are all living in, but we're measuring it from a system that must raise prices. So the credit market, if you allowed, because our entire system is based on credit, if you allowed credit to fall, deflation to happen, natural deflation to happen, the credit would keep unwinding to the ground. So you have governments all over the world, and it doesn't really matter where they print money, but printing money, essentially diluting the money to pretend asset prices or to make prices go up. What's really happening is the measuring stick is being manipulated. But we measure everything by that measuring stick, so we don't see it. So you have these two forces colliding into each other that will accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. Governments cannot stop printing, because if they do, in fact, they have to exponentially increase it. Otherwise, you have a deflationary spiral. And so in that, let's attach that to real estate. And so the reason real estate prices have gone up is because of that printing. And we might not see it because, and if you looked at the last 20 years to offset technology's gains, you've stimulated economies before COVID. You stimulated economies by $185 trillion to grow GDP by 46 trillion. And so we often don't question the monetary system we live in. We get focused on a part of the system. And in this case, let's use real estate as a part of the system. And people don't ask themselves, would my real estate have gone up without $185 trillion of stimulus? They think real estate goes up forever. And so now carry that forward. If there's not more stimulus, real estate will crash and crash badly. And so you have more and more, but right now people know that there's more stimulus coming. So they're levering, essentially trying to protect their money by levering into real estate so their money isn't devalued, and levering more and more and more. And the beneficiaries, people who have more real estate, are winning that game more because rents go up further, society is left out. But yeah, the other side of society moves to populist governments who then try to take that back. And because your real estate is inside a country, inside the monetary policy of the country, when that revolution or whatever redistribution comes, it's taken back because there's more people without than people with. And so at some point, You can question, is it next year? Is it the year after? But at some point, real estate doesn't become a safe haven in that. And if you just zoom out to places where Venezuela used to be the fourth richest nation by GDP. Look at it today, and would you want to own real estate there? Or look at Lebanon today, or look at Turkey, what's happening to Turkey today. And so what ends up happening is once you start to have currency failures because of the manipulation and because of the change to the social contract of society, most of the people left out either take it back through force, through revolution, or it's captured in text in a totally different manner. So if you now compare what's happening today, that underneath kind of the foundation of money is being broken. And what would be a safe haven out of that? And you need a different measuring stick that's measuring that whole system. And that's what actually Bitcoin is. So it's a system that cannot be manipulated. And if you measured your wealth by Bitcoin, what you would see is every single asset price, every single price in the world is falling by Bitcoin standards. But we're measuring the world by a fiat money standard. So we think our prices are rising. So the natural market actually looks like what's happening on Bitcoin.
Yes. Okay. And that's important context, right? Like relativity is really important when we look at the price of the assets that we hold in our wealth picture, right? Because you're absolutely right. So to recap some of this, like when you say we're in a credit-based system, it's a debt-based system that works really well as long as we're in an inflationary environment, because we can borrow some cash, we can buy an asset and pay that asset back in a future, therefore devalued currency, because the value of that currency has been inflated away, right? As we increase the money supply, same amount of goods we're purchasing with that. What's so interesting about this to me is there's always like a few cycles at play, right? There's the near-term cycles and maybe more macro longer-term cycles. And right now, if I heard you correctly, and you can tell me if I'm off base, we're playing an inflationary game, a lot of us in the market, right? Because we're seeing inflation immediately in front of us, right? And that's the short-term trend, the near-term cycle, whatever you want to call that. But if we're thinking in terms of like 2 to 3 years, that game's probably going to work out just fine for anybody who's, planning to generate wealth off of inflation. The longer term trend that's going to eventually eat that is that technology eventually eats everything. And technology is by definition deflationary, because technology endeavors to give you more for less, as you said, right? And as this continues to eat our world as we know it, the deflationary tsunami will eat the inflationary wave, correct?
Correct. But it's actually worse than that because going back to real estate, for example, or we get comfortable in the world we live in and we don't question outside that world. The goldfish has no idea that there's stars.
100%.
And they met, and again, measuring that system from that world. And so you have to zoom out from that world to see what's happening and what could happen here. People used to say, take real estate for an example. Would you want to own real estate in Detroit? And oh no, that city died because the auto industry moved. Well, go look at San Francisco today versus 2 years ago. The hub of what people were talking about with the hub of technology. Everyone's moving there. It's a total. Go look at it today, and people robbing high street stores. The streets look terrible. There's nothing they can do about it. It's a total mess. So real estate in that is starts to collapse in that because the society fabric breaks down out of this same thing. Now, you can't move your real estate once it looks like that. You're stuck to a system. And if you zoom out even further, if you look at how inflationary monetary systems collapse, and if you look at to Germany in the 30s, inflationary monetary system brought in Hitler. Hitler turned a populace against the people with wealth.
Yeah.
Why didn't the people with wealth move when they saw it coming?
Well, these things happen incrementally, right? 1 millimeter at a time.
The goldfish in the bowl. They don't notice everything that's happening, but signposts are everywhere. But worse than that, all of the people in Germany, the wealthy people in Germany, all of their assets were in Germany,
right?
And they made and they were getting richer and richer because rents were going up. They were protected against inflation, somewhat protected against inflation, because they held the assets, and that protection doesn't last. Because there's a negative externality to a huge part of the population that comes and takes it back, and you have these societal breakdowns, and you have these resets of currencies, and so you have to, whether you like Bitcoin, whether you don't like Bitcoin, I would say for anybody listening to this, I implore you to learn more about it and get off zero. Just get off zero.
Get off zero.
And so you start learning what it really is.
When you say get off zero, you mean have a non-zero position in Bitcoin.
Non-zero position.
Own some.
So don't own it on an exchange. Own it on a hard wallet, and learn why that's so important. You may not just save your family, but you may, by doing so, also bring a whole bunch of people over the bridge and help with you.